Hello, everybody, and welcome to Inside William & Mary School of Marine Science at the Virginia Institute of Marine Science, a three-part webinar series. Today, you're joining us for part two, which is a short but very intensive tour of the School of Marine Science. My name is John Griffin, and I am the Assistant Director for Admissions and Student Affairs here at the School of Marine Science. I'm very excited for today because we have a great panel of students that we have lined up to have talked to you all about their time here at VIMS and to show you some of their favorite parts of campus and what it really means to be a VIMS graduate student. Also, I'm very thankful to everybody who's in attendance for this event. I know it is a beautiful weekend out, so I am very pleased to see that you all are joining us and engaging with us this way. Before I hand off this session to my students and you get to hear them, we'll get to talk a little bit more about what VIMS is and the School of Marine Science and really who we are as an institution. So the first thing that everybody should know about VIMS is that we are a part of William & Mary. William & Mary is a globally recognized university located in Williamsburg, Virginia. We at VIMS, though, are not located in Williamsburg. We're located in Gloucester Point, Virginia, which is about a 20 to 30-minute drive away. But as you can see from this larger photo on the slide, we are located right on the York River. The York River is a large river that feeds into the Chesapeake Bay and then into the Atlantic Ocean. And for an institution that is full of people that are very passionate about coastal, estuary, and ocean sciences, this is the ideal place to be situated. We are in the heart of the ecosystems that we're passionate about and amongst all the study sites and communities that we really want to do science to preserve and to protect and to further understand. But as a part of William & Mary, all of our graduate students have access to the William & Mary main campus, which is a really gorgeous campus. And that means our students have access to all of the recreation center. They have access to all of the fun events and all the community that goes on your main university style campus. Also, William & Mary has a Washington, D.C. center. So our students get to, on occasion, take courses up there or go up there for professional development opportunities, which is a great resource. We here at VIMS, though, are one of the US's largest marine research institutes. We have our main campus located here in Gloucester Point, Virginia, which is where I'm coming at you from and where pretty much everybody who's on this panel will be presenting from. We also have another campus, a research facility located up in Topping, Virginia. And then we finally have our Eastern Shore Lab out in Wachapreague, Virginia. And so all in all, this makes us one of the largest marine research institutes and provides our students and our whole community with a ton of resources and facilities to do our science. And you'll hear a lot more about that throughout this session. We here at the School of Marine Science offer 3 different degree tracks. The first is our Professional Master of Arts program, which is really a degree that is designed for individuals who are passionate about marine science and want to learn a lot more about marine science, but then apply that science to professional careers such as in law or policy, business, outreach, education, or communication, things like that. Whereas our Master of Science and our PhD tracks are really designed for those research intensive individuals, the ones who want to go to a graduate program to spend all of their time in the field or in the lab or working on those manuscripts and publications. That's really where those programs shine. As I said, we're also one of the largest research institutes, and here at VIMS, we have over 400 members in our community, and that includes more than 50 faculty members who are all leaders in their area of expertise. And it also means that we have anywhere from mid-80s to almost 100 graduate students, all studying marine science right here on campus at any one time. So that just provides us with a very robust graduate community in which you can be a part of, and it's a really fun environment to be a graduate student in, and you'll hear more about that from other students later on. There's quite a few things that will be changing here at VIMS, and we're very excited for that. And the reason I bring it up is because most of these changes are slated to be open by the time any of you were to be starting here in the fall. So the first is that right in the heart of our main campus in Gloucester Point, we are building a new ACUF Center for Aquaculture. It'll be located right next to our main research buildings and right on the bank of the York River. And it's just going to be a brand new facility that should open this spring that'll revolutionize a lot of our aquaculture research and output. So really exciting, and I can't wait to get in there. Also, on our Eastern Shore Lab, we are renovating almost all of the buildings there to make sure that the dorm halls there, the research and education centers on our Eastern Shore Lab are up to date and going to be just beautiful. So by the time any of you are hopefully starting in the fall, these should be up and running, and I can't wait to take everybody through them. It's going to be a great time. Another thing that I wanted to highlight in this short segment before I hand off to the students is our marine and vessel operations. The marine and vessel operations are very hard to capture in a webinar setting like what you're joining us from. And so I just wanted to provide a few visual aids about all the vessel operations that we have available to students here. We have more than 30 research vessels available to the VIMS community for their research and study uses. And that's anything from our larger ocean faring RV Virginia that you see up there in the top photo, all the way down to our more coastal and shoreline research vessels. And Shannon Smith, who's on my panel, will be talking a lot more about that. So look forward to that session. And with that, I'm going to introduce you to the panel that I have arranged. So first, Dr. Vaskar Nepal will be joining us, and Vaskar is actually a recent VIMS alum. He graduated in 2020, but he is now in a postdoctoral research associate position with us. So I'm really looking forward to Vaskar joining us and you getting to hear a little bit more about his time as a student and now as an alum. Then we'll also hear from Kirsten Sharp, who's an MS student here at VIMS and is most likely graduating this semester. And that's really exciting. And I can't wait to hear from her. We'll also hear from Shoop, who's a first-year Master of Arts student. So very thankful for him to be joining us. And then we'll be hearing from Shannon Smith, who's a PhD student here at VIMS, Vanessa Strome, who's an MS student, and then Taylor Walker, who's another MS student. And just a brief overview of kind of everything that you're going to hear about today. We're going to start off by talking a little bit about the academics, the curriculum, and the coursework that is available here at VIMS. And you'll be hearing from Vanessa, who's a TA for some of our introductory courses here in marine science. Then you're going to be learning a little bit more about research labs and research resources here with Shannon. Then we're going to kick it over to Vaskar to talk a little bit about the seawater research lab that he uses. And we'll hopefully get to see some really fun catfish that he's currently working with. Then we're going to hear from Kirsten Sharp and Shoop, who will talk about our on-campus partners, which are an integral part of the VIMS experience. And then finally, we're going to hear from Taylor Walker, who is currently on our Graduate Student Association, and she's going to talk a little bit about the student life and community, which in my opinion is the most important and vibrant part of VIMS. So all in all, great panel with great topics, and I can't wait to hear everything that they have to say. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to invite Vanessa to join me up here on Zoom. And Vanessa, would you like to introduce yourself and show everybody where you're at? Thank you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this webinar today. My name is Vanessa Strome. I'm a second-year master's student in Dr. Juliet Smith's lab here at VIMS. I'm studying harmful algal blooms here in the Chesapeake Bay, specifically Dinophysis, which poses a threat to human as well as shellfish health here in the Bay. A little background about me. I'm originally from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I did my undergrad at the University of New Haven in Connecticut, and I got dual degrees in marine biology and environmental science. I graduated in 2019, and then after that, I took a year off between undergrad and grad school here at VIMS. I got an internship at Yale in one of their research labs, and then throughout that year, I was applying to grad school and was eventually accepted here at VIMS. So I started last year in the fall of 2020, which was really during the peak of COVID. So now that things are relatively back to normal, I feel like I've spent more time on campus and in-person classes this semester than all of last year. But today I'm going to be talking to you about the Dominion classroom, which is where I am right now, and some of the classes and the curriculum that's offered here at VIMS. So there are 6 fundamental courses that are offered here at VIMS, and there's at least 1 fundamental course offered per department. So there's biological oceanography, chemical oceanography, physical oceanography, marine geology, a fisheries course, as well as toxicology and pathobiology. So all graduate students are required to take these fundamental courses. The PhD students are required to take 4 fundamentals, and the MS students are required to take 3. And typically students like to spread these out over their first and second years. And some of the other required courses are the 503 interdisciplinary research course. So both master's and PhD students take this, and it's usually within the spring of your first year. So it's a really great way to meet other students in your cohort and work across departments. They really stress that interdisciplinary aspect of it. And you complete a semester-long research project that involves kind of coming up with the project, going out and collecting your own samples, and then writing up a report. So you then make a poster and you present your research findings to a VIMS-wide seminar. So it's open to staff, students, and faculty. And you present those findings in the Dominion classroom here. But last year when I took the class, we were unfortunately not able to do the field work due to COVID restrictions, but we still put together a really cohesive and interdisciplinary project that everyone was able to present to VIMS through a virtual seminar. And I actually got to present our work to someone at NOAA as a result of this symposium. So you never know what can happen with your class projects here. And then one of the last required courses of the marine science curriculum is the quantitative course. So we have 2 courses that satisfy that requirement. One is more of a statistics course that's based in R, and the other is more of a modeling course that's based in MATLAB. There are also department-wide seminars that are offered each semester. So each department kind of has their own seminar. The biological and physical departments are combined into one large seminar. And then the fisheries and aquatic health departments have their own seminar. So for each seminar, it's structured a bit differently, but for the aquatic health sciences department seminar, which is the department that I'm a part of, in the fall semester, we usually have guest speakers that students will recommend. And since Zoom has become more of the norm these days, we are able to invite speakers from all over the world to come and share their work with us, which is super cool. And then in the spring semester, the students are responsible for giving a seminar about their own research. So it's a really great way to practice giving those scientific talks and creating presentations that you might be able to use at conferences. And even though each department has their own seminar, they are open to everyone at VIMS. So if you're in one seminar, you can still go to other departmental seminars if you see something that catches your eye. And like John said, I am a teaching assistant for the chemical oceanography fundamental course. So I'm responsible for grading student homeworks and exams and leading review sessions before midterms and finals. But I don't actually teach the course. So the professor is always here giving the lectures. But I do know if you are a teaching assistant and teaching is something that you're interested in for a future career, some of the fundamental professors will allow their TAs to give like a guest lecture on their research or something that's related to the course. So that is an option as well. And then once you're done with your fundamental courses, you can move on to the higher level courses, and there are a plethora of courses offered here at VIMS. So this semester, one of my favorite classes is a harmful algal blooms and toxins course, which is actually taught by my advisor. It's pretty common for professors here to teach kind of like small seminar style courses that are within their research disciplines. So the course I'm taking is more discussion based, but I would assume this varies from professor to professor. And then over the summer, students don't typically take courses. They usually focus on the research, but I know that there are some courses that are offered over the summer. But the scheduling is very flexible here at VIMS. After you finish the requirements, there's really no restrictions on what classes you can take. So like I previously mentioned, I'm in the Dominion classroom today, which is located on the 3rd floor of Andrews Hall here at VIMS. So Andrews is one of the larger buildings on campus. It houses a lot of grad student and faculty offices and labs. So my office and lab is here. And if I'm able, I would like to show you a view that we have here of the York River. So because we're located right along the York River, We have great views from a lot of the different buildings here on campus, which is really great. There's also a pier that's right out in our backyard. And a lot of different labs will utilize this pier, whether it be through deploying different instruments off of the pier or going to get water samples. That's usually what my lab does. But the Dominion classroom is one of the main classrooms and meeting spaces here in Andrews. Classes are frequently held here, along with other graduate student meetings. And like I previously mentioned, the interdisciplinary course has their symposiums here. And I don't know if you can see behind me right there, but those are some of the past 504 posters. So after you're done with the course, typically the professor will print out your posters and then hang them in this room and also on the hallway, in the hallways outside, so you can show off your work, which is really cool. And like I said, this is where many of the first year and also some of the higher level courses are also offered. So within the room itself, I don't know if I can really show you here, but usually the students will sit there, and then we have a computer and a projector that will project like slides or things up there. And then we have some other TVs as well for like alternate viewing. But with the increased use of Zoom, many of the classrooms here on campus are now able to allow students to remote into class virtually if you can't make it in person. So some of the fundamental courses that are offered here also have undergraduate marine science minor students from the main campus, and they're able to Zoom into class from the main campus. So they can take the course, but not be here physically. And then one of the other real draws for VIMS is the marine policy subconcentration. So if you're interested in getting experience with marine policy, VIMS has a well-established relationship with the William and Mary Law School and the Public Policy Department. So you can take an additional 10 credits of law or public policy classes to obtain a subconcentration in marine policy as part of your MS or doctoral degrees. And a lot of students that are interested in the policy and law surrounding their research will complete this. But if you don't want to pursue the subconcentration, maybe don't have time, you can still take classes on the main campus and at the law school. And like John mentioned at the beginning, these courses, you have the opportunity to interact with local stakeholders. And since we're relatively close to Richmond as well as Washington, D.C., one of the courses actually allows students to visit Richmond and D.C. to interact with policymakers on Capitol Hill. So that's a great opportunity. And then beyond the marine science, the marine policy subconcentration, students are able to take classes on the main campus in other areas of study, like GIS through the Center for Geospatial Analysis. And additionally, if there are other courses you might be interested in that aren't offered at VIMS or William and Mary, we also have a relationship with Old Dominion University in Norfolk. So you can also take classes there, which is another great option. So really, you'll have more options than you'll have time to take in your time here at VIMS. And with that, I will take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Vanessa. Another thing that I'd like to highlight is just the number of like other interdisciplinary courses that go on. For instance, right now there's a marine resource economics course happening. And I know that's a really strong course for anybody who's passionate about like fishery sciences or things like that, as well as a number of like science communication courses, K through 12 and the STEM field education courses. So a lot of areas that you might be interested in, we have courses here that really speak to that. And that interdisciplinary nature of marine science and the curriculum, I think, is a really strong aspect of VIMS and something that we do like to highlight. We have a question here from Matthew asking, how many students are in an average fundamental class? Vanessa, what has been like your experience?
So my cohort was about 17 people. And I would say within the fundamentals, there was anywhere from like 8 to 15 people, I would say. I know with the bigger cohort this year, some of the fundamentals have upwards of 20 people, but that's also counting the undergraduates that are at William and Mary sometimes too. So they're very small classes. You really get to know the professor and everything like that. So
yeah, I would say fundamentals, just depending on which one you take, is anywhere from like that 12 to 20 maybe. So that's kind of what we're looking at. So, Vanessa, I'm also wondering if now that you've completed a number of your fundamental courses and are thinking of that advanced coursework, was there any type of like course of study that you took as an undergrad that really that you feel that really prepared you well for the advanced curriculum here? Or do you have any advice for courses that students should think about pursuing in their last year or two of undergrad?
Yeah, I would say I took a lot of marine biology classes and like ecology. I would say that's a good one to take because I know some of the courses here go into more detail about ecology, especially within the salt marshes and the local community here at VIMS. And I took a lot of biology, like invertebrate zoology. That was a good one too. I also took marine botany. I think that was a good course to prepare you. And also if you can take any sort of like statistics or coding courses, if you could come in with that foundation, that would also be, I think, to your advantage as well. I mean, I think you don't have to come in with that. I've definitely learned a lot in the classes that I've taken thus far with that involve coding, but it would definitely help.
All right, so while John fixes his Zoom, thank you so much, Vanessa. We're gonna jump over to Shannon.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. So as John mentioned, my name is Shannon Smith, and I'm a PhD student in the Fisheries Science Department here at VIMS. I'm about halfway through my program, so I've got about 2.5 or 3 years to go. And my research focuses on characterizing nursery habitats for a couple of different species. I'm working on black sea bass, summer flounder, and spot. And these 3 fishes are pretty popular with commercial anglers and recreational anglers, and they're delicious. And we've seen a troubling decrease in recruitment lately. So there's not as many fish surviving to adulthood as we would like there to be. And so to that end, I'm looking at what habitats are best for these fishes and what habitats provide them the most growth benefits, what habitats are they most healthy growing up in, and looking at their distributions. A little bit about my background and path here real quick. I got my Bachelor of Science in a very small landlocked college in New York State, and it was in biology, so I didn't do any marine science. And then I got my master's at Eastern Illinois University, also quite landlocked. And I got my degree in biological sciences, but my research focused on freshwater fisheries ecology. And so I guess my point in telling you that is that there's a ton of diverse, backgrounds to the students and faculty and staff here at VIMS. Some people have extensive training in marine science before they come here. Some people like me are coming from different backgrounds. And that's what makes things really a lot of fun, is seeing those different perspectives from different fields. And that makes makes learning a lot of fun. Let's see. After I did my master's, I took a couple of years off and worked in South Dakota as a fisheries researcher, and then in Arkansas as a lab manager. And then I came here for my PhD. And one thing I'll say is I was a little apprehensive about coming back to academia and doing classes. It's like I had homework and I had to take tests. And I hadn't done that for 2 years because I was working as an employee. And I was a little apprehensive about that. But the transition was fine. All the faculty and staff here are very supportive. Most of them have been there. They've gone through that. And so that was a relatively easy transition. Let's see. So right now, I'm in Nunnally Hall, or our fisheries science laboratory. This is where my labs are and where my office is. And I'll just kind of show you around. So this is we call it our fish processing lab. And this is where a lot of the fun things happen. There's no fish to be processed at the moment. But kind of on this side is where a lot of our juvenile fish are processed over here. So we take the total length and the weight of the fish. We remove otoliths or ear stones to age the fish. You can kind of age the fish with rings like you do with trees. Let's see, hopefully this is kind of working. This is just, sort of standard lab stuff, all of our field gear, a lot of coolers to pack fish in. We've got some gill nets over here to sample fish with. And so this is kind of where it all happens. And so here we're working on juvenile fish, striped bass, adult striped bass, river herring studies. There was a blue catfish predation on blue crab study in here a few months ago that wrapped up. And so there's a lot of different projects going on. And then now I'll just briefly take you to another one of our labs. And this lab is more of a kind of microscopy lab. Just bear with me for a second for the transit time here. You can see a little bit of Nunnally Hall. So go down this hallway. We have awesome pictures of fish and whales on the walls to make it feel, you know, fun. All right, so this is our age and growth lab. There's a calorimeter over here somewhere, there it is. We've got several sets of microscope equipment. We've got imaging cameras and imaging software on all these computers, along with these relatively high-powered microscopes. So I can take otoliths, you know, I can take pictures of otoliths down at the micron scale, so really small. So yeah, this is where a lot of my work happens as well. And so it's really nice to be able to have, you know, be able to go out in the field and collect my fish and then come back in here in the same area and, you know, do all the processing and do all the otolith work. And so these labs are just kind of just one example of the resources that VIMS provides to students. And so another example I know of, and I'm not a physical sciences person, but I know someone over in physical sciences has some piece of equipment where they measure sediment grain size with lasers. And so that's really cool. I don't know anything about how it works, but that's really cool. I know we've got, you know, equipment to do genetics and stable isotope analysis. And, you know, if you need a piece of equipment, you know, to do your research, odds are somebody in VIMS has that equipment. And what's great too is that, you know, some principal investigator or faculty member probably has that equipment in their lab, and they're usually more than willing to collaborate with you, train you on that equipment. And it's a really just nice collaborative space. And having all of these diverse, you know, coastal, estuarine, and marine sciences research focuses, and having all that different equipment really allows you to design really neat research questions and answer them in unique ways without having to ship things off, you know, to be processed halfway around the world. So the resources here are pretty awesome. So another resource I want to highlight that John briefly touched on is our vessel fleet here at VIMS. And fleet is definitely the correct term for it. As you saw, we have over 30 vessels. Most of those are between 12 and 25 feet long. And so these are, I think there's, you know, 23 or 25 of those. I'm not sure the exact count at the moment. But when I got here and I went down to our boat basin, which is where all these boats are kept here at VIMS, I was amazed. I was so excited because coming from institutions that had, I don't know, 4 or 5 operational vessels at any one time, coming here and seeing, you know, all of these boats just, you know, on trailers, ready to go, ready for research. It was really exciting. I nerded out a little bit. So that was really, really cool. And the nice thing too about VIMS is that, you know, all these smaller vessels are available for researcher, staff, and faculty use for research. And if you're like me and you're coming in with some boating experience and you're a certified operator, you can, you know, just take a short little test with marine operations folks, and they'll say, okay, yep, you're good to go. And then you're allowed to, you have to fill out a safety float plan, but then you're allowed to take those vessels for your research, which is really nice. And that gives you kind of a lot of freedom and flexibility in terms of your field hours and what you want to do. If, on the other hand, you're coming in without a lot of boating experience, but you want boating experience, vessel operations here will train you. They will train you up on operating these smaller vessels, on trailering these smaller vessels. And, you know, once they say, okay, you're good to go, then again, you're allowed to check these vessels out and take them away. And that's just a really, really nice thing to have in your toolkit, you know, being able to say, yes, I'm a boat operator. I'm comfortable backing boat trailers. And it's great that our marine operations is willing to and very happy to train you if you're coming in and you'd like to have that in your toolkit. And if, you're somebody who says, I have no desire whatsoever to operate vessels at all, that's okay too, because marine operations has personnel that will operate the vessel for your research, and they'll take you to your field sites. So there's a lot of flexibility in field work here. And again, that's just one more thing here at VIMS that allows you to really get a lot of high quality research done. And it makes it relatively easy to do so, which is nice. And the last thing I want to highlight about the small vessels is that VIMS also has staff and really awesome people who perform basic outboard motor maintenance and trailer maintenance. So I know in my previous job, I was the one doing a lot of that, and that took time away from research. But here, it's nice knowing that, the trailers, the lights are going to be working, the outboard motors are functioning properly, and I don't have to be responsible for that. Someone down at Marine Operations has already taken care of it, and it's good to go. Let's see, so the last thing I'll highlight about the vessels, John briefly touched on our larger vessels. And so if you're not impressed with the 25-foot boat, we have three larger boats that are used for research. One is about 43 feet long. It's our research vessel Tidewater. And another large one is about 63 feet long, and that's our RV Bay Eagle. And these boats are used for a lot of fisheries surveys, for crab dredges, but they're also used to deploy small gliders and small remotely operated vehicles. I know the physical sciences folks have taken the Tidewater out and deployed some gliders. And so there's really a lot of opportunities and good platforms for you to do research from vessels. And of course, our kind of newest flagship vessel, the RV Virginia, as John mentioned, that has offshore capabilities. It might not be the prettiest boat in the world, but it is highly functional. The deck space has a ton of A-frames and davits for heavy equipment lifting and deploying. The lab spaces inside are very functional, highly flexible, and you can pretty much run almost any research project off of that boat. And it's very cool. I know some examples of work that's being done include some shark long lining, bigger fisheries trawl surveys, and deploying really large buoys and gliders, especially offshore. Again, so that's just another resource here that we have, is we have a vessel that can go offshore and answer these questions. And I'll just add that the captains and crew of these larger vessels are really nice. They're awesome to work with. They love seeing new science and meeting students, and they're a part of VIMS. So it's a really great community. Let's see, one other resource I want to touch on that John briefly mentioned is the Eastern Shore Laboratory. And the Eastern Shore Lab, and we call it ESL, is really, really neat. It's a really great resource to have. And so as John kind of mentioned, so we at VIMS, we're right on the York River. And the ESL is in Wachapree, which is on the eastern shore of Virginia. These are, two totally different ecosystems, right? And so having facilities, having a base of operations in both of these totally different systems allows you to, again, ask some really cool research questions. You can compare these two completely different systems. I've done that with my own research. So my research on juvenile fishes, I'm sampling here in the Chesapeake Bay. And then I also have collaborators on the Eastern Shore who work at ESL who are sampling over there as well. So, having that base of operations, it cut down costs. I didn't have to drive a trailer and a boat, 2.5 hours over there. I could go over there and stay overnight at the dorms and do research for a week straight with my collaborators over there. And it really is just it's a very cool platform and a unique platform to do that research in different system and ask those research questions. And the Eastern Shore Lab, John briefly mentioned it, they have dorm spaces, they have wet labs, aquaculture facilities, dry labs, libraries, pretty much anything you need to, conduct your research. And the staff is really awesome as well. And they love to work with students. They don't see many of us because we're a little far away geographically. So, not a lot of students go over there without a purpose. But another really awesome thing about the Eastern Shore Lab is that they allow students to come over and stay in the dorms and just write. So if you're finishing up your thesis or working on your dissertation and you need a change of scenery, you can, call up the director of the Eastern Shore Lab and say, hey, Dr. Snyder, I'm kind of stuck. I'd love a change of scenery. Can I just come stay over there for a week and work on my dissertation or work on my thesis? And he'll say, yes, of course, come on out. And so it's just really nice to have that sort of change of scenery and have that flexibility when writing. And that's something else that's really neat. I think I'm probably getting towards the end of my time here. So just some parting thoughts. Oh, I see John on screen. Am I out of time, John?
Oh no, I was gonna feed you a question, but give those parting thoughts.
Okay. So for me, being able to be the crew leader of my research and operate the vessels was really important to me. And I also wanted to incorporate, lab work, otolith imaging with the microscope behind me. And I wanted to do all these different facets of research. And all the resources here at VIMS allowed me to do that. Just as a quick example, I was doing drawing some blood from fishes for stable isotope analysis. And what that isn't really that important. But the point was, I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never drawn blood from fishes. I'd never done anything. I didn't have a centrifuge. And I was able to collaborate with someone who did know all those things and had a centrifuge. And that professor loaned me the centrifuge and went through the protocols with me. And so I guess my point is that it's a highly collaborative community. There's a lot of great resources here from a lot of diverse perspectives and research backgrounds. And it's overall very conducive to high quality research.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Shannon. There is a quick question in the chat for you, and I'm wondering if you could quickly address it.
Yeah.
This is coming from Brittany. They're saying, having come from a different academic background, did transitioning into marine science pose any difficulties for you? And do you have any recommendations for students who will be coming from a different background for a smoother transition?
I would say the most difficult part of the transition for me was just not knowing the species of fish out here, which might sound kind of silly, but I was very familiar with all of my freshwater fish. And I could go out in the field on the boat and identify, okay, that's that fish, that's that fish. Coming here, I was like, well, I don't know any of these fish. And so that's a very sort of research topic specific problem to have. But in terms of overall knowledge, and Vanessa can speak more to this, but the fundamental core courses covered everything I needed to know. I didn't feel out of place in those fundamental courses. I didn't feel behind at all. I didn't feel like I had to catch up. That's really the point of those courses, is to give you a background in marine science, as a whole, all the facets of marine science. And so I would say the transition was overall pretty easy, in part because of those fundamental courses. In terms of what you could do to prepare, if there's an undergraduate course that you want to take, that maybe I had an oceanography course at my small landlocked college and I took that, but even if I hadn't taken that, I would have been fine here. So, Google's a great thing. You can always just Google basic topics and explore a little bit on that if you're feeling a little apprehensive about coming into marine sciences. But I would say, there's not a ton of preparation necessary. They take good care of you here.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Shannon. I really appreciate it. Now I would like to hand off the tour to Vaskar, Nepal. So Vaskar, if you're there, would you mind joining me up here and showing everybody a little bit about the Seawater Lab and tell them about who you are?
Of course, yeah, thanks. Can you hear me all right? All right, good. Hi, my name is Vaskar Nepal. I am a postdoctoral research associate at VIMS. As John mentioned earlier, I actually started here as a PhD student a few years ago. Then I mostly worked on blue catfish, which is an invasive species around here, and I'll talk more about it later on. But I finished my PhD here a year and some time ago now. Then I really loved VIMS so much that I decided to stay on for a little bit longer. Now as a postdoctoral research associate. So that should at least give you, some idea why you might want to come here, because it's a fun place to be. My research as a PhD student was on blue catfish. Well, let me just talk about my background first, I guess. Just like Shannon, actually, I got my master's degree from Eastern Illinois University in freshwater fishes. Before that, I came from Nepal, so a landlocked country, just in case you did not know. I come from a landlocked country, then went to a landlocked state working on fishes in the rivers. Then I came here. So it's okay. It can be done, you know. So that's an important thing. So for my research here, I worked on blue catfish, which is an invasive species. For my postdoctoral research, I continue to work on blue catfish, but also a bunch of other things. But mostly I'll be talking about my blue catfish work today. For my PhD, I actually worked on a lot of different kind of work, meaning that I had some experiments in the lab, I had some physiology, I had some fieldwork component as well, but I also had some modeling work. So lots of different kinds of things within the same program, and that can happen, especially because there are experts of all kinds within the university. You can get help from people and you can still develop a really elaborate and very multidisciplinary work for a dissertation or a thesis. So here I am in seawater research lab right now, and forgive the shaky cam. I hope this does not deter you from thinking like this is a horror movie or something. I actually really love it here. The reason I have a phone instead of a computer is because in seawater lab, things can get pretty hazardous. And I do not want to lug around a laptop. So just thought that this might be easier. So around me, this is the main room of the seawater research lab. As you can see, it's pretty big. And you'll talk with Maggie in a little bit as well. I will start by showing off some of the work that other people are doing, and then I'll get to what I am doing. So let me switch video here. So here are some eels that one of the PhD students who could not be here is working on. She has these American eels, and she's working on looking at the effects of Vibrio on these fish. Now, there are also a lot of other people working on fishes. So here, for example, are, I don't know if you can see it very well, but there are some mummichucks here. These fish, also there are some few other species here as well. I am not sure if you can see them very well. So these fish are here because our fish physiologist here, Dr. Richard Brill, is looking at the vision aspect of these species. So a hardcore physiology work and on a bunch of species too. One other thing that I want to show is these tanks here where another PhD student, I think she's a PhD student, is working on soft shell clams. She's essentially trying to see, from what I understand, whether these species can be raised in high temperature or low temperature conditions so that aquaculture can be increased in places where they do not exist right now. I do not really know much about these because this is not my research. My research is on blue catfish, and I'm going to show those now. The blue catfish, and let me show this. I have the blue catfish shirt on, and that's because I'm a nerd, so you belong here. So these are blue catfish that I have in the tanks right now. These are pretty dark now, but when you find them in the lab, when you find them in the rivers, they are a little bit lighter. I actually do not know why they are so dark when you get them in the lab, but they perform the best when they are the darker colors. So that's good. Why are they here? I have 8 tanks here with blue catfish. This is one of the treatments. What I'm looking at is how blue catfish are going to do with climate change and with increasing salinity. Blue catfish are traditionally a freshwater fish that were introduced here, but they now have sort of taken over. They are an invasive species here, and we are trying to find out how far into the more saline areas, in the estuarine areas, blue catfish might come. So we are trying to look at the effects of salinity on blue catfish physiology. The other question we are trying to tackle is how climate change is going to affect blue catfish. So we are exposing them to different temperatures and looking at their metabolic physiology. So that's what we are doing. So these tanks are where we have the blue catfish essentially acclimated to the target temperatures and the target salinities. And from here, we actually go to another room, to take the fish to another room to perform the respirometry trials. So I am going to walk over there right now, but while I do that, I'm going to show some other places that we have here. So so let's talk about this one first. This is a big tank, and these are used by physical scientists for a lot of sedimentation processes, as well as to check their gliders and whatnot. These 2 rooms here are here because these are cold rooms. So a lot of a professor here and his students are working on how different diseases can impact freshwater fishes in really cold conditions. These are cold water fishes, so they have to stay in a very cold condition. All right, now we are in the respirometry room, and I'm going to hand over this to Maggie, who is going to talk about what we are doing here.
Hi, hear me? Great. So I'm Maggie Dillon. I'm a technician. And right now I help Vaskar out with his projects on blue catfish. And we have a couple fish running in trials right now. So like Vaskar was talking about, we have the fish at different temperatures and salinities. And right now we have some fish running in our chambers, and we're just gonna take a look at that. So I can flip the camera. Yeah. So we have, don't know how well you can see this. There's a fish in the chamber, and there's 2 pumps. One is recirculating the water and has an oxygen probe, and we're measuring how much oxygen this fish is consuming. And then at a set timer, we'll flush in new water, and we hold these fish in here for about 24 hours, and we get to see how they consume oxygen over that period of time. Yeah. So we have this set up like this right now. I don't know if you can tell. We just started a measurement period. We're measuring all of these fish. It just flushed, and they're starting. Yeah, so we're starting to see them consuming oxygen. We're gonna come over here. One of the things you're gonna look at is their standard metabolic rate and then their maximum metabolic rate. So we have this really fun, nifty little chute that Vaskar and I designed. And we'll place the fish in here and put a pump on this end and have the fish swim upstream in order to get their elevated response levels and hopefully be able to measure that maximum metabolic rate. It's kind of an interesting thing, but it works pretty well. Yeah. There you go.
So the idea here is to measure how much oxygen they would be consuming if they are breathing really hard. So essentially what we are trying to do is put the fish in there and chase it until it cannot really swim anymore. So that's what we are doing. It doesn't sound humane maybe, but the fish will be fine because then they are in the chamber and they are actually really calm over the next 24 hours or so. that's what I do here. Before I hand it over, I just really want to mention really quickly that in addition to these places that I have shown, there is a whole other section of the Seawater Research Lab, which has facilities for example, chemical analysis, as well as for disease analysis. So those would be very specialized places where I cannot actually go because, you know, I do not have access to those places. So there are facilities to do that as well. This Seawater Research Lab was built probably about 15 or 20 years ago now. It has seawater coming from the York River directly. We have the municipal water. We also have a small supply of fresh water. That's how the researchers are able to work on freshwater fish. We also have the air coming in continuously. So we have facilities, and we have the personnel to build something particular if we need to. So that has been really helpful. So yeah, that's what we have. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Vaskar. I really always love getting to see inside the Seawater Research Lab. I think it is such a great facility. And as you can kind of hear from Vaskar, it provides our students in our VIMS community with a whole bunch of resources and opportunity to do experiments. And just as he was saying, Vaskar and his colleague really are passionate about fishes, which is great. But the SRL is not just for those who are passionate about fishes. There's plenty of geological studies that can go on in the Seawater Lab, as well as he was saying, really cool like chemical and toxic analysis. And those have very specialized chambers to make sure that we have controlled environments and none of the experiments that are going on there are getting flushed in and out of our system. And also it allows for us to really develop our ecosystems in that environment. So like water straight from the York River can be flowing in to make sure that we're replicating very realistic ecosystems. So always very cool. And with that, we're gonna move on to our next group of individuals, which I'm gonna first invite Will Shoop to come up and join me. And he's gonna talk a little bit about Davis Hall and Marine Advisory Program. So Will, do you wanna take it away and talk to everybody?
Sure. How's it going, everybody? My name is Will. I am a first-year MA student in the first year of the MA program. So we're doing a little bit of a kind of a trial run for the MA program, and it's been fantastic so far. I'm coming to you from Davis Hall, which is VIMS's newest building as of now. I think once the aquaculture center is done, when any of you would get here, that would be the newest. But as of now, this is our newest building, and we'll do a little bit of a tour before going into what goes on here. So obviously space for conferences here. There's another conference room over here, Center for Coastal Resource Management. There's lab space located down there for the scallop project, which I'm a part of. And then we have a great view out to the York River from here, and then more office space, including my office down here. And then rounding us out is the Virginia Sea Grant located here. So most of what goes on here in Davis Hall is related to education, outreach, and kind of applying the research that the scientists here at VIMS do to the community. So the Marine Advisory Program provides technical assistance for aquaculture, commercial fishing, sport fishing, as well as doing outreach in the community with events such as a scientist walks into a bar where someone from VIMS has an opportunity to go present their work. Or in the K through 12 environment, we have an education outreach team that builds curriculums and informs teachers on how they can incorporate marine science into their schools and get their students immersed in marine science at a younger age. And the Scallop program, which is what I do with my advisor, Dave Rudders, who is the director of the Marine Advisory Program. We collect scallops with trawls in the spring, bring the shells back to Davis Hall. We clean them, age them, and we can get a sense of kind of the age and the density of the population. We'll take that data and we will then help the Commonwealth and help the federal government to build the quotas for the upcoming fishing year. Yeah, that's kind of what the MAP does. And then how I got here, I came straight from undergrad. So I graduated in the spring of this year, and I've only been at VIMS for a couple months, but it's been fantastic so far. The community here, I think, as you can tell even from this webinar, is just so connected. If you need anything, there's probably someone around here that can help you, whether that's with equipment or if you need to know something about a specific species or you need someone to take you out on a boat. There's always going to be someone to help you do that. And then specifically for first year students, I'm sure Taylor will go into this stuff in much more detail, but things like the ESL trip with your cohort and the bio fundamental class takes the RV Virginia out just on a kind of a cruise around our area of the bay, and the fall party. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that the GSA does that bring your cohort together and really make you feel like you're a part of the community here at VIMS. And I know that we're going to hear from Kirsten, so I don't want to go too long. I think we covered it.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Will. So I will now invite Kirsten Sharp to come join, and she's going to talk about another of our wonderful on-campus partners. And so if you have any questions related to on-campus partners, we can bring Will back later. So feel free to ask whatever questions you might have. So Kirsten, take it away.
Thank you, John. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy that you're here on the webinar. Just kind of echoing what John said. I know it's a really nice day outside, so thanks for being inside on the computer with us for a little bit over an hour today. But I'm Kirsten Sharp. I am actually in the process of finishing up the MS degree program here at VIMS within the next month, which is very exciting. But I've actually been here at the Institute for nearly 8 years now. So my master's work has focused on studying zooplankton, all the animals that drift around in the water in the York River, and specifically the role that their fecal pellets or their poop plays in the carbon cycle, which is always a lot of fun to explain to people. But before starting the grad program in 2018, I worked for about 4.5 years at the Chesapeake Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve in Virginia, or CB-NER as we call it. And CB-NER is one of the on-site federal partners here at VIMS. So CB-NER was established in 1991 and is one of 29 sites around the country that make up NOAA's National Estuarine Research Reserve System. And it's managed as a state-federal partnership between NOAA and then VIMS. And CB-NER's mission is to promote the informed management of natural resources as well as the protection of coastal regions and areas through the work of the 4 departments that make up the system, which is research, stewardship, coastal training program, and education and outreach. So I'm currently in the Catlett Burris Research and Education Lab building, which is kind of like the heart and soul of CB-NER. It includes a variety of research labs as well as the education and outreach lab, which is where I'm presenting from. So I'll just move for a second so you can see what it looks like. But you can see there's a couple of TVs in here. There's lots of table space and chairs, and this is where a lot of the K-12 programming and public education events take place here at CB-NER. So just a little bit more about the actual system. So CB manages 4 protected areas along the York River salinity gradient. And hopefully you can see this map, but this is the York River here. So these are the 4 sites. So they kind of move from essentially a freshwater wetland area all the way to the mouth of the York River, which is in the Chesapeake Bay. So along the salinity gradient, there's a variety of different programs and monitoring programs that CB provides. But it's also a resource for student and faculty researchers at VIMS and beyond. So students can actually apply for a permit to perform research in those 4 locations. And in addition to being able to perform your own research in those locations, CB also has like a wealth of long-term data from the sites that can complement your research, including VCOS, which is the Virginia Estuarine and Coastal Observing System that monitors water quality throughout the sites and throughout the York River and Chesapeake Bay, and also the system-wide monitoring program, which provides data on salt marsh growth and erosion and also sea level rise over time in this Tidewater, Virginia region. And in addition to serving as a research resource, CB also provides a variety of graduate student professional development opportunities through the outreach and education program, which is what I was involved with when I worked here before. So the educators at CB they're kind of like the K-12 crew here on campus. So they like focus specifically on K-12 education, but they also do public and teacher workshops as well. So they do things like open house style lab events, field trips, summer camps, and teacher workshops where they're frequently asking for graduate students to participate, assisting as guest speakers, or providing like hands-on displays or animals for their guests to interact with. And they also, along with Marine Advisory Program that Will was just talking about, the educators that work within that program, they provide a program called Virginia C, which is the Virginia Scientists and Educators Alliance. And this is essentially a program where the educators lead a training to help graduate students learn about lesson plan development and best practices in science, communication, and education. And then they work with the students to develop a lesson plan based on their research. And they pair the students with a teacher who tests the activity in their classroom and allows for some real insight into the applicability of that lesson plan in a classroom. And then all the lesson plans are actually published on the website, which becomes a tangible resource and a publication that you can list on your CV, which is awesome. And then the educators at CB and Marine Advisory Program are also always open and willing to work with faculty and students here at VIMS to produce like broader impact and outreach projects and programs that help fill the requirements for some of the large science grants that you may apply to. So it's always good to have a broader impact and outreach component of your research grant. So that's one resource as well that CB helps provide. And I've been kind of strictly speaking on behalf of CB today, but there's a plethora of other outreach and communication opportunities here on the VIMS campus, which is part of what I really love about VIMS and why I've been here for so long. But it includes things like our Speakers Bureau, where the outreach team will pair scientists with groups that are requesting presentations, as well as like public outreach series, including after hours lectures and Scientist Walks into a Bar that Will had mentioned, guiding public tours of campus, our annual Marine Science Day, which is a campus-wide open house event for families and the general public, which is really fun, as well as just festival attendance and things like that, spreading the mission of VIMS and sharing with people why what we do is really important. And it's also worthy to note that a lot of these opportunities that I've mentioned provide workship, which means that you can make a really nice hourly stimulus while you're getting to work on your communication skills, which is obviously a win-win for anybody. So lots and lots of really great resources. I have fully loved working with CB officially, but also since I've been a graduate student, I've been pretty heavily involved in education and outreach since I've started graduate school as well. It's a great institute if that's the type of thing that you're interested in, because I would say that one of the most unique things about VIMS that I know of like other institutes is that we have a really, really great public relationship with the broader community from things like Marine Science Day. We've really developed a really good reputation as being like a really fun, family-friendly area where people can bring their families and their kids and their everyone, their friends and such, to learn about marine science in a really effective and fun way. So I love our education and outreach teams, and I'm happy to speak on behalf of them and answer any questions that you guys have as well. But thank you for listening to us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kirsten. I really appreciate it. And exactly as Kirsten was saying, I think one of the most impressive things about VIMS, and one of the reasons we chose to highlight our on-campus partners for this tour, is that almost all of our students interact with our on-campus partners, whether it's Marine Advisory Program like Will, the CB NEAR with Kirsten, or Virginia Sea Grant, or our Center for Coastal Resources Management. All of these wings that are located in the heart of campus are ways for our students to interact with like the greater public, whether that is through local citizens and schools, K through 12 programs, all the way up to like policymakers in Richmond or in Washington, DC, as well as globally. So it's always a really fun fact for me to share that a number of our students have, just like Kirsten was saying, published academic curriculums. And that was just like a fun thing for them to do, where they're able to develop a curriculum based on the research that they're really passionate about and already doing. And then those curriculums are getting used globally in K through 12 programs in just everywhere. So always such a cool thing, or giving public talks. So any student that comes here will get a lot of hands-on experience that just makes it so that by the time you do graduate, you'll be a very prominent applicant for kind of whatever job you're wanting to do. And so honing that skill through our on-campus partners is a big part of that. So thank you, Kirsten. Oh, and another fun thing that I guess a fun fact that Kirsten did not want to share, but she's one of our handful of students who have made regular trips down to Antarctica for their research. They just kind of blow past that, but in my opinion, that's like the coolest fun fact anybody could ever have. So Kirsten, way to just nonchalantly not address that.
My research didn't focus on Antarctica. I'm the only one in the lab that doesn't. So
I'm just saying it's a great icebreaker in my opinion. But anyways, so thank you, Will, and thank you, Kirsten. We're now going to hand it off and welcome Taylor Walker to come join us. And Taylor's going to present a little bit about the VIMS library and what it means to be a part of our student community. So Taylor, are you able to come join us? Hi, Taylor.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, John, for the introduction. My name is Taylor Walker. I am currently a third-year master's student in the Biological Sciences Department. My research focuses on how blue mussels and coquina clams are responding to short and long-term changes in water quality, with an emphasis on temperature and pH changes. And today I'm talking to you from our library, which is called the Hargis Library. And so this library is a really great space. It's really adaptable for your needs. So I am going to do a little bit of a walking tour, but I do want to talk to you about the library a little bit first. So one of the services that the library offers is an interlibrary loan. And so while our library has lots of really great marine science oriented materials, like archives from the U.S. Commission for Fish, some of these materials could be enhanced by getting some materials on loan from SWIM Library, which is on William and Mary's campus. And so if you talk to Carol Coughlin, who's kind of our head of our library here, she can easily get you those materials sent from SWIM Library to the Hargis Library here at VIMS free of charge. And that process takes about 2 to 3 business days, if not shorter. And so that's really great that we can get those materials from SWIM here at VIMS. And that can include getting textbooks for your classes. If you are taking classes at William & Mary or classes at VIMS that require textbooks, you can get those here at VIMS Library or Hargis Library, and those can be reserved for like the entire semester so that you can utilize those features throughout your class time. And then some of the spaces here can be reserved, such as like study rooms. And then we also have some desks that I can show you in the back here. So if we just come look down, these are our wooden cubicles, and those can also be reserved if you're really serious about your studies here. You can reserve those for an entire semester so that you know you'll always have a spot in the library, which is really great. And so now I'm going to kind of walk this way, but I'm in the upper stacks of the library. And so again, lots of really great resources here. And then you can see we have a lot more student spaces behind here. And this library sits directly on the waterfront, which is really nice. So you can see lots of fall foliage at this time of year. And then you might even have the fortune of seeing a couple of dolphins outside of our windows. They like to play in this area. So that's also really, really great. This library has lots of access to very particular materials such as archives and like historical maps. So these are a really great tool to use if you want to enhance some of your research by utilizing some of the historical materials that we have here. And the upper stacks is wheelchair accessible. So I think that's also really great. There is a wheelchair station right over there that you can use. So I am going to step down onto the lower stack level so that I can show you guys some of our study spaces. So excuse the transport time. So right now we're walking through some of the lower stacks, and I'm going into one of our study rooms, which again can be reserved. So these study rooms are really popular if you're taking a statistics class, and you can put up your R code up on that monitor over there, or you can go through some of your materials for chemical oceanography using that whiteboard. And so these are really, really great spaces to utilize when you're here at VIMS. And then we also have access to desktops and laptops that you can loan if you would like. And there's also printers down here and scanners so that you can print anything that you would need for your classes. So those are all very easily accessible. And then if you would like late night or weekend access to the library, that can also be arranged very easily. You'll just need to request a key, which again, very easy to do so. And so now I'm going to kind of take off my library hat and talk about the student life here at VIMS. I'm currently the vice president of the Graduate Student Association. And so we serve basically as a liaison between student life and academic studies or administration at VIMS. And so I interact with the students a lot. So I can really speak to some of the great opportunities for student engagement and student life here at VIMS. And so we have lots of different clubs and organizations at VIMS that can really speak to any one of your interests. And so some of the clubs that we have a green team club, which deals with like composting or beach cleanups that we have periodically here at VIMS. We also have a professional development committee, which puts on different events to increase one's professional development. So we can have like CV workshops. We'll invite people from different careers so that people can have an opportunity to see what career paths that we might take. So we recently had a career panel that we usually have once a semester. And so you have the opportunity to meet with different people in careers that you may like to pursue. And then Will and Kirsten both mentioned Scientist Walks into a Bar, which is something that our professional development or PDC committee puts on each semester. And so again, as Will mentioned, you have the opportunity to go to a local bar and basically interact with members of the general public while also getting experience with communicating to different audiences. We also have a committee called our TGI committee, or I Thank God It's committee, which hosts events once per month. And this basically gives people a chance to network with other people on campus that they might not see normally. So staff can come, faculty can come, and students are of course welcome to come. And we basically provide food and just a chance to network with people at VIMS. And then we also have a party planning committee, which I'm also on. And so we host 2 big VIMS-wide parties per semester. And so we have a fall party where we do a pig roast, and then we have a spring party where we do a fish fry. And this party is a really great opportunity to, again, see some people that you don't normally see and just a chance to hang out. And so we tend to have a beer truck, we have a bounce house and a live band. It's a really great time. So I definitely recommend if you choose to come to VIMS to attend the spring and fall party because they're really awesome. And then we also have a grad bash, which some of our students at VIMS have a hand in organizing. And so grad bash is an opportunity to meet other students from other William & Mary grad schools. So that's really fun to interact with students from the Graduate School of Law and Business or Education and Arts. And some of the other things that we have here at VIMS that are a little bit more volunteer-based is we have a first year representative on the Graduate Student Association. And so this is an elected position. So if you choose to come to VIMS, we will ask the first years to make some recommendations for who they would like to be for their first year rep. And then the first year students will vote, and that first year rep will serve on GSA for 1 term. And then we also have a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. And so this committee has 4 different subcommittees. We have a task force implementation committee, we have a training committee, we have a policy committee, and we have a communications committee. And so basically the purpose of Dive-In is to help increase awareness and practices of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so John may also be able to speak to this because he is also on the Dive-In committee. But we do lots of different things on VIMS to try to increase that awareness. And so we recently put on a bystander training where we invited people from VIMS to attend this workshop to help them find ways to be a more active and vocal bystander against racism. And so we host events like those once per semester. And then the policy committee is responsible for reviewing VIMS policies and making sure that the language is inclusive, and then trying to identify ways that we can be more inclusive and increase diversity on campus. And then the communications committee is responsible for communicating with the VIMS campus about the events that are going on. And then the task force helps to implement the practices that we have isolated and identified for renewal or revision in the policy committee. And so there's another thing that was mentioned throughout this webinar that I think Shannon originally brought up, and that's the ESL library, or excuse me, the Eastern Shore Lab. And the Eastern Shore Lab also has a library there, which is also really great. And as Shannon mentioned, if you want a chance for a change of scenery, you can also go to ESL and utilize their materials there, which are mostly endemic to Waterpre. But if you need to bring materials from VIMS to ESL, you can do that as well and have a chance to do some writing, or you can also do some writing workshops if you want to gather some friends to attend a writing workshop in ESL, and you guys can write together. And you can also have the opportunity to do research at ESL. We have lots of small vessels that are very adept at going into shallow water. So if you want to utilize those, that's a quick email to the director of ESL. We are also getting some new buildings at ESL, which is really exciting. We're getting a new housing facility, a new administration facility, a new research and teaching lab. So that will be really great. And we're also getting a new hatchery at ESL. So there'll be an even larger wealth of materials for you to use for your research. Or if you would like to engage in some teaching opportunities, you can do that at ESL as well. Let's see, I'm trying to remember if there's anything else. Oh, and then we'll mention the ESL trip. So that's something that we put on for our first year students each year at VIMS. And so the ESL trip, you'll basically have the opportunity to go with your cohort to ESL, and you guys will get a chance to go marching through the marsh and get a chance to possibly go swimming and go on some small boats and basically take a tour of the ESL lab over a weekend and have the opportunity to bond with your first year students. And the highlight of the ESL trip is we put on a big fish feast on Saturday of the trip. And that includes lots of really great food made by our ESL director and some VIMS volunteers. And so I highly recommend that you participate in the ESL trip should you decide to come to VIMS. And then kind of a little bit more about like student life in general, like where students typically live. Most students typically live in Gloucester Point, but there's also a significant population that lives in Williamsburg, which I think John mentioned earlier is about 20 to 30 minutes away. I personally live in Newport News, which is again, 30 minutes away. So everything is really close. And a lot of people might say that Gloucester is a little bit rural, but Gloucester does have access to grocery stores, libraries. There's also a couple of different shopping centers, and there's a theater. So it's not as rural as people may make it seem to be. And I do feel that student housing is relatively affordable. If you want roommates, you can have roommates, but I do think that housing is affordable enough that you don't need to have roommates if you don't want roommates. So that's really great. Oh, there's another club that I failed to mention, which is our Sail and Paddle Club. And so this club takes different trips throughout the year, and they can go like whitewater rafting or sailing and things like that. So that's another club that you may be interested in pursuing should you like to get out and active with your fellow students. And I think that really covers everything. Oh, we also have a couple of different parties on campus. In addition to fall and spring party, we also have several different holiday parties that you'll likely be invited to. So we have a graduate student holiday party. We have a departmental holiday party that each department usually hosts. And then we also have a VIMS-wide holiday party, which is really great. And then I do know that several of the cohorts also engage in a Friendsgiving around Thanksgiving. So that's also really great. And then Vanessa mentioned earlier that we have a VIMS pier. And so that VIMS pier is also really great for viewing fireworks. During 4th of July, we had a TGI, or I Thank God It's event on 4th of July. And we had students go out and watch the fireworks from VIMS pier, which was really special. And then one of the other opportunities for, I guess, a student hangout is Clayton House, which is a house that is in development here at VIMS. And so ideally by the time that you guys are here, we will have access to that house. And so this house will have conference rooms, a kitchen, and study rooms. And then we also have Clayton Annex, which is solely for the students, and we'll have movie nights there. We have workout equipment there if you don't want to go to William and Mary and use that gym. And then we'll also have ping pong, a pool table, and a foosball table as well. And so that's really great. And then Candace may want to jump in on this later on, but we also have lots of opportunities for community engagement. We recently had some VIMS students volunteer at the Urbana Festival, which is a festival that is a few minutes north of VIMS and basically highlights the opportunities VIMS students have in interacting with the community. And so you can go to Urbana and basically help people learn a little bit more about their local research institution that's a few miles south of their home, and also an opportunity to learn more about Urbana and its relationship with oysters. And so that's really great. And then there's one more thing that I am going to mention, and that's our VIMS miscellaneous email, which is a really special part of our community here at VIMS. And so VIMS has this email server called VIMS Myths, and we often have opportunities for people to sell and buy things, and we call that VBay. And so if you're ever looking for something that you don't want to spend a ton of money for, someone at VIMS may be willing to give it to you for a very low price or for free. And so we've had people sell a ton of different things. Recently, someone sold a motorcycle, or someone might be selling a couch or anything like that. So if you want to make a quick buck or get something for really low, you can check out VIMS Miss in our VBay sales. But I think I'll end there. I apologize for jumping around, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Taylor. I really appreciate it. And with that, we have a few minutes left, so I'd like to invite all of my panelists who are still around to come back online and join me. I have a few quick questions, like a rapid fire round for everybody who's still here. And so my first question, and we got little snippets from each of their special places, but I'd like to know, like on a personal level, what is your favorite location on the VIMS campus and why? And we can go really quick. So Taylor, since you just ended, do you want to start it out, or is this too quick?
Sure. I'm actually going to say the library. I think our library is really beautiful. I actually don't spend a ton of time here, and I wish I did, because we have a really great library and it's really close to the water and it's just really pretty and peaceful.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Who would like to go next?
I can go.
Oh, go ahead, Kirsten.
Okay. I honestly think this room right here. I spent so many hours of my life doing programming here, and I grew so much as an individual, both professionally and personally. So I would say probably as far as my growth opportunities, this space right here.
I'm going to piggyback off of Taylor's answer, because we have those benches right outside the library facing the river. And the weather has been so great this year that I think it's a great view and a great place to just sit outside and decompress right outside the library.
Oh, that's a great answer, Will. I've had a few student meetings out on those benches, and there's no better meeting place than that. Vanessa, I'm looking at you next.
All right, I would have to say Andrews, because I spend the most time here, and also because of this view in the background here, especially on the third floor. There's a lot of plants like along the hallway, and if I've been in the lab for a while and I need a break, I can come out and the plants make me feel better, and the view does too.
Great. Shannon?
My favorite spot is probably in our VIMS boat basin with all the vessels, but there's a little tiny strip of beach there too, and it's just a really nice place to go down. It's right on the York River. You can watch ships go by. There's a naval base kind of upriver, so you can watch submarines come in and other ships that I don't know the names of. But it's a very nice kind of place to go decompress, go outside at lunch, go down to our VIMS beach in the boat basin, and just kind of get a change of scenery.
See, that was the one that I was thinking everybody was going to say, but yes, VIMS students do have access to the VIMS private beach. which is an amazing resource. And I know our students utilize it a whole bunch, especially since we have our own little mini fleet of upright paddle boards and kayaks and things like that. So very fun, and you'll regularly find students enjoying that. All right, Vaskar, what was your favorite place as a VIMS student?
The boat basin. You can probably tell that Shannon and I are in the fisheries department. Well, for one, I really like the beach, the VIMS beach that's there, but also the boat basin is how we go out on the boat and go out and catch fish and do fun stuff in the estuary and out in the sea, you know. So that's the gateway to all the fun stuff that happens, and that's why I really like the boat basin.
Okay. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this webinar session with just a little bit more information from me. And the first thing is that I hope you all enjoyed today. One of the big reasons that we are doing this webinar is that we are in the middle of admission season for our fall 2022 cohort. So if you are thinking of applying for this year, or you are thinking of applying in the future, hopefully this information was helpful, but just know that the application is open right now, and it is open until January 5th. So please make sure, if you are wanting to apply and come here, to get that submitted on time. It's crucial. And here's all the components that go into our application, but you can also find all of this information online. What I'll also say is to please attend, if this information was helpful, next week's final webinar session. We're going to do a deep dive into our application and admissions process. So you'll get to hear from the chair of our admissions committee, the program director for the MA program, and a number of phenomenal grad students about what it is like to apply here and what that whole process is, both from a student perspective and that faculty review perspective. So that's going to be a great session that is going to give you a lot of insight into how to create your application and get that submitted and be a very competitive applicant. All of our information for admissions and the grad program can be found online, very easy Google search. Or you can contact us directly. If you use the admissions@vims.edu email, you can talk with me or a few of my colleagues, or that's my personal work email. I'm always willing to have a conversation about admissions or the grad program here. So don't hesitate to reach out. That's my favorite part of my job, is to talking to prospective students. You can also find us on social media. So if that's your thing, please find us and connect with us that way. Another way to connect with us is subscribing to our regular e-newsletter called e-tidings. The information for signing up for that is right here, and you can also find it online. This will help keep you up to date on everything that's going on here at VIMS. So if you're interested in the research or the news coming out of here, this is a great way to stay up to date. And that's the last thing that I have to share. So I'm just going to thank my panelists. Everybody, thank you for taking time out of your Saturday to join us. I really appreciate it. And I think it was a great panel. And to all of my attendees in the audience, thank you so much for also joining us. We're so happy to connect with you this way and to chat. And if you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to me, and I can help connect you with any individual on here, I'm sure, or answer any questions that we might not have got to. I know we went over a little bit on time. I look forward to hopefully seeing a number of applications from you all coming in right now or in the future. So with that, I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. And I know probably me and the rest of my panelists here are going to go outside and enjoy that beautiful sunlight in the York River. So we look forward to seeing everybody around later, and have a great rest of your day.